Okay, cool. So the next talk is by me on feature management. Does anybody know anything about feature management? About feature toggling? No? Okay, cool. So to start with, for people who don't know what feature management, feature toggling, feature switching, there's lots of different terms about it. It's pretty much just an if statement. So we just say if feature one is enabled or any feature, then we do something different. And that's pretty much it. That's my talk. So there's actually a lot of different ways we can toggle different types of features. So these are a few of the, there's four main ones really. There's actually release toggles. So these are where they encourage people to keep committing to master and release it on every commit. So this allows people to create a feature toggle on the feature they're building and then toggle it off and keep deploying that feature till it's turned off until it's all ready, and then they can switch it on and then it can be on in production. And this eliminates people having long-lived branches and merge conflicts and things like that, and keeps the kind of CI pipeline nice and fresh. So if you've got tests running against it all the time, you know it's going to be working the same as it was working before. And if it does fail or something does go wrong once you switched it on, you can just flip it back off because it's on a nice little toggle. The other one is experimental toggles. So this is like A/B testing. So does anybody know about A/B testing? Yeah, quite a lot of people. Cool. So this is a way people can implement a certain set of experimental toggles on the user, and then they can turn them on and off for, say, a 50% split across them or different regions. So you can say this region works better like this, and this other region works better like that. Another one is operation toggles. I find these quite interesting. So people like BBC use these quite a lot. So if your kind of queue size gets so large that when you're processing requests, your system starts to degrade, you can have it so it flips a feature toggle to turn that kind of processing off and direct customers to a different part of your site, for example. So you might have a video which is highly streamed by lots of people, and then you might be getting quite a lot of error rates from that. And you might have some operations toggles on that saying if you get 50 errors in a minute, just turn that feature off and push people to a different direction on the website to kind of deal with that kind of issue. Another one is permission toggling. So this is if you've got a bunch of beta users to your website or kind of special users, you can use a feature toggling to turn beta features on and off. So you can trail them against a subset of users instead of just everybody. So there's different types of feature toggles. So you either have them always on or always off, or there's a way to do filtering. So these are the kind of time-based ones. So you might say while 9 while 5 we want this feature on, and at night time because we don't got no support for it we can turn it off. So we have time-based windows for kind of features. Random selection is where probably use more for A/B testing. And then, as I said, you can use metrics like CPU, memory, queue size, and things like that to kind of deal with kind of operational toggles. But you're probably thinking, why do I really need a library to do all this kind of stuff? Because I can just write if everything in my code, and it's nice and easy. And this is there's two main reasons why you probably want to use somebody else's framework to deal with the different scenarios, and this is one of the scenarios. So if you have an API, and we've got a user using an API, they use it call the API, and they have a feature to evaluate. So we call this feature 1. They evaluate that feature, and if it's enabled, we do some extra processing. If it's disabled, we just do the normal processing and then skip over the extra processing. But then what happens if we want to evaluate feature 1 again? We should get the same value what the feature 1 was enabled or disabled before. And if we've got 50% selection of randomness between if the feature's on and off, we don't want feature 1 to first be evaluated as true, and then when it gets to evaluating the next time to being false. So what we need is a way to snapshot them. And a library usually kind of deals with this scenario for you. So it'll snapshot every time a feature is evaluated. So if feature 1 is evaluated as true, it'll always go down to the enabled route all the way down. And same as if it's always false, it'll just go disabled all the way down. The other scenario is session-based stuff. So if you've got a website and people are using it, they might hit on to a dashboard page with a bunch of users on there, and it might be displayed in a different way for them because they're a beta user. So they call feature 1, and yeah, you're a beta user, that's great. But then they might go onto a different page, which is user 10 to edit their details. And that is also a part of feature 1. So they want feature 1 to be enabled still. So this is a way to store sessions against your features. So instead of snapshotting your whole request, you'll snapshot it in you're keeping a track session against that user. So you know the last time they evaluated feature 1, that feature 1's always true now, and it'll never change. So Microsoft has started building this thing called Microsoft Feature Management. I kind of stumbled upon it by just reading lots of code on GitHub like a nerd. And I found it quite cool, to be fair. It's in preview still. I think it was supposed to be shipped in .NET 3.1, but it never made the release. But they've been altering quite a lot of the signatures since version 2, and I think it's on 3 now. And it kind of gives you these functionalities for you. And it's built on top of the Microsoft configuration library. So this is the new configuration for .NET. And that's great because that means we can pull the different feature toggles on and off and different configuration from all these different types of configuration providers. So we've got like Azure App Configuration, which is fairly new. The Azure Key Vault, environment variables, command line arguments, directories and files, custom providers, what you can write your own, and there's loads of different open source ones as well. You can use in-memory stuff, so you can just set them in memory in your code, and you can use JSON setting files or XML ones as well. So because it's built on top of the .NET configuration stuff, that's all .NET standard. So that means you can use Microsoft Feature Management on pretty much anything .NET related. So that means you can use it on your full-fat .NET framework, your .NET Core, Mono, Xamarin, UWP, and then Unity as well. So if you're building a mobile phone app, you can use this library to switch things on and off based on what the user's doing. But I've not showed you how to use it, so this is a bit what's up next. So like everything in .NET now, we literally just call the IOC container and say, add feature management to my bunch of objects what I want to be able to create. And then we passed in either an iFeature Manager or an iFeature Manager snapshot. So you can either use these two interfaces. The iFeature Manager evaluates the toggle every single time. And if you use the snapshot one, it'll just snapshot it for that whole request. And then if you want to evaluate it, we pretty much just do the same if statement what we showed on the first page. This has got a wait in front of it, and that's because it uses IO-bound operations like reading files from disk, using network communication and stuff like that. And then we just pass in like a string, what is our kind of feature, what we want to check. And then if it's evaluated true, then we just make things more fun. So if fun colors are enabled, we make things more fun. So to set up the configuration for it, this is an example of app settings.json, and they're all pretty much very similar. You end up using underscores instead of colons, and you can put them into environment variables and things like that if you use them that way. But this is pretty much it. So you declare a block in your configurations called feature management, and you set fun colors, which is our kind of variable, a feature, sorry, and then we set it to true, and you can also set it to false. So nice and simple. And then for the filter, so these are the ones where you have different kind of behaviors based on different metrics and things. So this is used as a Microsoft percentage one, which is built in. We can say we want a 50% selection of if this is enabled or not enabled, and we want to enable it to fun colors. And also this is an array, so you can actually put lots of them in. So you can say, I want a 50% selection between 9 and 5. What's also great about it is it's really extensible. So the session management of it all can be implemented with an iSession Manager. So if you want to rip that out and put your own in, say you want to use like Redis for like storing the session data, what it stores against everything, you can put that in it. But by default, use an empty session manager. I think they are building actually at the moment some new ones for you to actually just use yourself. So the ones that work with app services and things like that. Also filters, so these are the percentage-based ones and time-based windows. You can create these with an iFeature filter, and you can just inject them into your IoT container and they'll evaluate. And then also, if you don't want to use the .NET configuration and you want to use something else instead of that, you can rip out that and implement your own iFeature settings provider, so then you can just do something crazy and load settings from anywhere else as well, if you really want to, but I don't see why you would. So that's kind of the core part of the actual feature management stuff. But there's a bunch of stuff on top of ASP.NET Core to help us to kind of enable you to be more productive, I suppose, than just writing if statements around everything. So these are a few of the kind of examples. So for a kind of controller, what we hit, if you want to kind of have this switched on a feature, we can just add a FeatureGate attribute to the actual controller. And if this person's a beta, if the person who's doing the request is a beta user, they can access this controller and do the actions on it. We can also append the same attribute onto the action as well. So very similar to a lot of the kind of authorization like attributes and things like that. Also there's tag helpers. So this, if you're using Razor and you write in some server-side rendering stuff, you can just wrap it in a tag helper, and this one's called feature, and you just give it a name, the name of the feature where you want to toggle it based on. You can do routing based on it as well, so that's very much similar. You get an idea, nice and easy. So you can map the route for a feature, and you can say if there's a beta user, then they're allowed to slash somewhere. The same thing for middleware. So if you want to change the middleware, maybe you want to turn authentication on or off or something, I don't know, something crazy. You can just push in a bit of extra middleware within inside the pipeline. So maybe they've got access to the API or something else like that. You can enable it per feature basis. But also, so if we've got things disabled, like say we've got a controller disabled and you've got an endpoint which is like for a beta user and somebody else hits it, they're just going to get a 404 not found. But if you want them to have a better, friendlier experience, you can start using this disable feature handling. So when you set it up on the IOC container, you can pass in call another method on it, which has a lander. And this is called use disable feature handler. And all it is a callback what's called once a feature has been evaluated to false. And within this, you can then just return back any old result of where you like. So this just returns back saying you're not a beta user, go away. And a 403 status code. So nice and simple. You can also pull this out into a class now as well. So there's actually an interface for that as well. And you can inject it straight into the IOC container, so you don't need to just stick in the middle of a lander. So I've got a few demos to kind of show people, which are always fun and don't usually work. So where's my code? Hold on. So to start with, I've got this small little application. I'll run it first. Nope. So all it does is bounces a car up and down on the screen, which is very exciting. It has a message at the top of it that says, "Welcome to this amazing feature management demo." And I want to add some fun colors to it. So I want this on a feature toggle. So what I've created is we've got this program CS, which is our startup. We've got our top of our service collection here, which is using just app settings JSON. We're adding an app into it, which is bounce up and down car. We're adding some different filters to the feature management. So this is a time-based window and a percentage-based one. We're creating the container, and then we're just creating the app and then executing it. And then on executing the app, we've got this forever loop, which writes the top bit out, what says welcome to the demo. And then we just got a right line car down. And inside here, we just evaluate if a certain feature is enabled. So we say feature manager dot is enabled, fun colors, and then do some fun colors if it's enabled, and if not, don't do fun colors. So with the car bouncing up and down now, we can literally just go into the config settings and change that to true. As soon as we save that, we'll straight away save this. Other one should change automatically. Oh, there we go. So there's our fun colors. So that's pretty much how we can toggle our feature on and off with fun colors and not. So one of the things is I'm just going to show you a percentage-based one. So if you just copy and paste that in. So this is using one of them filters, which says like I only turn this feature on if there's 50% of the users on and off kind of thing. I have a selection of it. So if you then run that again, you'll see that it doesn't work.
It worked Tuesday.
Huh?
It worked on Tuesday.
It did work on Tuesday. This is really weird. Nothing works today. This is odd. What have I done wrong? Oh, I know why. It's because I don't like... Yeah. Ruined half my demo. That's why the other one didn't work as well. So in this, obviously it's re-evaluating each time. So 50% of the time it's writing it with fun colors, 50% of it's not. So obviously that's not really ideal all the time. So we're getting the title with some fun colors and the car with not some fun colors. So what we can do is add that I feature management snapshot into the constructor of it. And then once it's evaluated that one feature, it'll always get evaluated the same. So we've always got fun colors turned off there. And it's off again. And it's on. It'll stay on for all the kind of evaluations of that. So the next one is actually a demo I've got to show. Is on ASP.NET Core. So I've got a controller here, which is a beta controller, beta user controller. So it's got an index on here, which says this is some extra beta user stuff. It's also got a members controller. It says you've got a member cookie. And then there's also some extra content inside the views. So if you go to the home view and look at this, we've got two things here, which says feature beta user displays you're a beta user, and feature a member user displays you're a member user. And if you go and look at how that's configured, we've got for beta user, we've just got a simple toggle on and off, so you can turn that on and off. And then for the member user, we've got this member selection. And notice this is using a different filter, it's using a cookie feature filter. So this is actually one what I've written myself. So this is kind of how you can extend it. So all this does is implement that iFeature filter. You get an alias for what you want to call it. So this is what you reference it in the configuration. And then all you do is kind of just write your kind of code how you want to evaluate. So all this does is try to get a cookie value based on a cookie name, which is based on some settings. So I get a bunch of parameters from the configuration. So that's these things. In the wrong config file. Back this one. So this is these parameters here. And where's it gone? And then it just checks them values if they're set. So if their value is set to the value what you expect in the cookie, then it returns true, else it returns false. So if we run that demo, so if you copy paste that into my URL. So there's nothing enabled at the moment, so we've got nothing different on the welcome screen. But if you go into the config file, change this app settings to be a beta user is true. This will also refresh. So if you're using the .NET configuration and using config files, they auto reload as well. So they'll reevaluate. So they'll change exactly as you change them. So now we're a beta user. And if we set a cookie value as well, so we've got a cookie called member, and we set that to 1. I don't know how to set them. And then if we refresh that, we're now a beta user. And you'll notice that we've got some different nav bars as well, items on the nav bar. So if you click beta user, we'll get this is extra beta user stuff. And then if we go turn that off as well, and then refresh that, then you get you're not a beta user, go away. And that's from our code getting evaluated within this disable feature handler here. And the same thing will happen. So if we refresh it again, well, beta member will disappear and we've got members stuff. You go there and you say we've got a members cookie. You change that cookie value to 0. Whoop. And click the button. Change to 0. Save that, then refresh it. It'll tell us a beta user because that's the only thing that gets evaluated, but it checks that cookie and we're not allowed access to that bit page anymore. So then everything's back to normal. And that's pretty much it. So there's the 2 demos. where we went through a simple switching, some percentage-based filters, some snapshots, and then we've got the attributes, the tag helpers, the custom cookie filter what I built, and the disable feature handler, so then we can reply back some useful information to them if they haven't got access. But yeah, thanks.